Brian Gordon is the Chief Business and Strategy Officer with the Dave Cantin Group. And Brian, you guys have done a study that is kind of earth-shattering here. You're saying we've hit peak truck in the American market. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, who would have thought that Americans were finally going to move on from their love affair with trucks and SUVs? Um, what we're seeing is consumer sentiment beginning to change. So this isn't Americans walking away from all their trucks and SUVs and falling back in love with the sedan. This is a trend that is really spurred by affordability and the challenges that Americans are having with car payments and how expensive they are, and there's a lot of other factors that are involved in that. But we're seeing some tough choices, including trading down from trucks and SUVs, which are more expensive than sedans and some other vehicle types, in order to try to drive that monthly payment down.
So we've also seen pretty strong mid-size truck segment. Do you think that accounts for some of it? People going down to a smaller truck?
Well, and that's it's a really great point, because we're seeing trade-offs across the board. We're seeing consumers moving off of those big trucks and SUVs and maybe down into a smaller version or into a sedan. We're also seeing consumers looking for lighter trim packages, anything that they can do to try to get that monthly payment down. $50, $100, or $150 makes a huge difference for them as they're looking at their monthly budget. And so peak truck is a really, really important concept to watch, because we're not sure how far that trend goes. But what we believe is that the longer the conditions on the ground stay the same or get worse from an economic perspective or an uncertainty perspective, consumers are going to continue to be more pragmatic in the choices they make in terms of the vehicles that they're out there looking to purchase.
But as you know, I mean, for GM, for Ford, for Stellantis, I don't know about Toyota as much, but I mean, these are the crown jewels. This is where they make all their profit.
Yeah,
And
and intentionally so. They've moved toward trucks and SUVs intentionally, not only because it's a vehicle of choice for consumers, but because they're highly profitable. And you're right, most of the domestics have walked away almost exclusively from the sedan. In fact, recently, Stellantis and Dodge in particular, the head of that brand came out and said that they believe that sedans are going to be a huge part of their comeback story, that this is a vehicle type that American consumers want. And when you look at some of the manufacturers that are having the greatest success, in particular, some of the foreign manufacturers, Mazda, they've got different product, Kia, Hyundai. These are brands that have a better mix of product than some of the American manufacturers. One point I would make is, again, we're seeing a move of a couple of points. Now, that's significant in an industry as large as automotive, uh, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of trucks as we know it in America. And there's always going to be locations where trucks are still going to be dominant or are still going to grow. But we're looking at a macro trend that is really, really interesting to see play out.
yeah, so what would your advice to the automakers be? Just cut the prices of their full-size trucks or what?
I think they're already trying to do that. I think what we're seeing is that consumers are demanding more vehicle choice. And if one manufacturer doesn't offer it, they'll look for another manufacturer that does. And so when you look down at the product pipeline, 26, 27, 28, I think we're seeing some of that diversification. And it will be very interesting to see whether the US domestics follow suit with that and start to bring back some of the vehicles that they've moved away from over the course of the past, 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. As you know, President Trump wants to put 25% tariffs on vehicles from Canada and Mexico. A lot of full-size pickups come in from
Right.
Canada and Mexico. Uh, the Anderson Economic Group just put out an estimate that those tariffs could drive up the prices of those trucks and SUVs by as much as $9,000 or $10,000.
Yeah.
I got to believe that would even hurt sales far more than what you've seen so far.
No question. And when we put out the market outlook report at the beginning of the year, it's not intended to be a crystal ball for the industry. What we do is we lay out 7 topics that we think are going to be the most important things for the industry to pay attention to over the course of the year. Now, policies and regulations and other things impact all of those factors as the years go on. But you said it, most of the factors that we're seeing, even in this first 30 or 40 days of the new administration, are creating more inflation concerns. They're making the Fed nervous, which will lengthen the amount of time before we probably see an interest rate. You're seeing more economic uncertainty, and all of those factors are going to make this trend probably more significant as the year goes on.
Mm-hmm. We've seen the automakers come out with full-size electric pickups. I mean, sales are just nowhere near where they need to be to pay off for that investment. What's your thinking of this extended range EV, where you got a gasoline engine to keep the battery charged and get pretty long distance, even carrying loads or towing things?
Yeah, look, I think consumers have spoken, and that's a concept that for the automotive industry is relatively new. That consumers really do have an impact on what manufacturers should be selling versus manufacturers sort of selling what they want consumers to buy. And any hybrid version of vehicles, consumers have said that that's something they're very, very interested in. Now, a company like Toyota has always stood by the hybrid and has been an industry leader. But now you see all the other manufacturers racing into the hybrid space because it is a little bit of the best of both worlds. It gives you that extended range. It's easier on the pocketbook, and consumers don't have some of the fears that they do of a pure electric vehicle. And so that's another story to watch as the year goes on, is how manufacturers are pivoting into hybrid. But we put that into the same story of more vehicle choices for consumers who really are flexing their muscle and saying, we'll buy from whoever gives us the vehicle that we want to use for our lifestyle.
Yeah. And apropos of everything that we've been talking about here, I got to believe pricing on these hybrid trucks and SUVs and extended range versions of them, pricing is going to be key to whether they sell or not.
Yeah, pricing is going to be a big factor for any vehicle type right now. And there's going to be some tension there between the manufacturers, the dealers, the consumers to try to find that sweet spot. And again, we would go back to some of the Asian brands that are having a lot of success right now, like Hyundai, Kia, Mazda, because they seem to have found a really nice sweet spot of reliable, good product, pricing, technology, and just cool cars. They may not be the best at any of those, but they're really good at all of them. And consumers are really gravitating toward that type of vehicle right now.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, I get to test drive all those vehicles, Hyundai, Kia, Mazda, and completely agree with what you're saying there. Have I missed anything? Anything to add?
No, to me, the thing to watch is how interconnected a lot of the stories that are happening out there in the world are. And again, affordability will be the dominant theme that will drive a lot of other things that are happening in the automotive industry. And the uncertainty that's happening around the economic picture and the policy picture is really what everybody is paying attention to. But keep an eye on affordability, and whoever can deliver Americans what they want at the best price is going to be successful this year.
That's terrific. Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.